stuck? Still waiting? Still the same? Wow. You know, if you're listening to this explainer right now, chances are, well, there's a version of yourself you've been desperately wanting to become. But somehow, year after year, you find yourself sitting in the exact same spot. It's a pretty stark reality check, straight from the source text we're breaking down today. So, welcome to the explainer. Today, we are absolutely tearing into the anatomy of stagnation, why you can't change. Our source material outlines 60 rather brutal truths about the habits that keep us completely paralyzed. We're going to look at the hard data of human behavior, figure out exactly why we get stuck, and honestly, more importantly, how we can finally wake up.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We're going to tackle this systematically through 5 clear steps. First up, the lies we tell. Second, the trap of someday. Third, your invisible cages. Fourth, the psychology of stuck. And finally, number 5, breaking the cycle.
All right, part 1, the lies we tell. These are the internal excuses holding you back.
So look at this. There is a massive, profound difference between these two phrases. On the left, I can't change. Saying that implies a total lack of ability, right? It instantly makes you a victim. But over on the right is the hard reality. You won't change. The text is absolutely relentless here. It points out that acknowledging the literal difference between a true inability and a deliberate unwillingness is the very first step to actually taking your power back.
And right alongside that is the big lie of age. You know the one. Oh, it's just too late for me. But as the text brilliantly points out, people drastically change their lives at 50, 60, even 70 years old. You're not special in this regard. Age is literally just another incredibly convenient lie we tell ourselves to avoid doing the hard work. Which, of course, brings us to the ultimate identity excuse. That's just who I am, or I've always been this way. Listen, your past does not equal your future. Your current self, it's not a life sentence. It is a choice you are making every single morning when you wake up. You can simply choose to be different.
Moving on to section 2, the trap of someday, waiting for the perfect time. Think about how often we constantly tell ourselves, I'll start tomorrow. But funny enough, tomorrow magically never seems to arrive, does it? Or we say, I'll start Monday. I absolutely love how bluntly the source puts this. Monday is a liar. And my personal favorite, I'll start next year. Guys, January 1st is just an arbitrary date on a calendar. Today is a new year if you decide it is. This builds perfectly into what I call the motivation myth. We sit around waiting to feel motivated, but guess what? No one is coming to tap you on the shoulder and say, go. Motivation is just a visitor. It pops in, it leaves. Action is what actually creates motivation, not the other way around. Actually, scratch that. It's more like action forces motivation to show up.
And perhaps the most toxic mindset of all is waiting for a crisis. Why in the world do we feel like we need to hit absolute rock bottom before we finally make a change? Waiting for a disaster to force your hand is a terrible, terrible strategy for life. Change before you are forced to. Let's jump to section 3, your invisible cages, the environmental traps keeping you stuck. So here's the thing. We expect entirely different results, but we surround ourselves with the exact same triggers. You hang out with friends who don't grow, you stay in a job that drains you down to zero, and you live in a city that limits your opportunities. These are invisible cages, and they are quietly sapping 100% of your energy every single day. And this brilliantly illustrates what happens next, a completely miserable daily loop. The alarm goes off, you scroll on your phone, you go to work, you come home and watch TV, you go to sleep, do it again. There is absolutely zero room in this sequence for anything new. If you never ever introduce a new variable, how on earth can you expect a new outcome? Because of these environmental cages, last year's problems, yeah, they are identical to this year's problems. And why is that? Because you never actually solved them. You just box them up like old decorations and carry them right over into a brand new calendar year. And we carry them over using the exact same excuses we always use. We say we have no time, but the harsh reality is our calendars are just full of things keeping us stuck. We say we're too tired because, well, we're completely burnt out from living a life we aren't trying to change. We say we have no money while we're perfectly fine investing $0 into our own growth. It's a tough pill to swallow. Which brings us to section 4, the psychology of stuck, the deeper fears at play here. Okay, this is one truly fascinating reason from our source material. It's a psychological concept called secondary gains. This happens when your problem actually benefits you in a kind of twisted way. It gets you attention, maybe sympathy, or just a built-in, ready-to-go excuse for why you aren't succeeding. Without even realizing it, subconsciously, you become addicted to your own victim story. Then, there is this striking comparison between familiar pain and new pain. Think about it. The pain of being stuck right now, you know it. It's yours. It's almost comfortable, right? But the pain of changing? Man, that is scary. It is entirely unknown. Human beings are literally so terrified of the unknown that they will actively choose a pain they already know just to feel safe. Crazy, but true. And that fear manifests in so many ways. We fear failure, so we just don't try, which ironically means we fail by default anyway. We fear success because changing might mean more pressure and way higher expectations. We fear the judgment of other people noticing us change. We fear losing our identity. I mean, who are you without your problems? We even fear outgrowing our partners or losing our friend group if we level up and they don't. These deep-seated fears just paralyze us. Finally, we arrive at section 5, breaking the cycle, the action deficit. When it actually comes time for action, we tend to intentionally avoid support systems. Think about it. You have no therapist to guide you, no coach to push you, no mentor who's actually been where you are. Changing entirely alone is incredibly hard.
Yet, we isolate ourselves, essentially guaranteeing our own failure before we even start. And that leads to a very specific number: 0. That is the exact amount of structure most of us have for our change. 0 written goals, just a bunch of cloudy thoughts floating around in our heads, 0 deadlines, 0 accountability, 0 consequences. Let's be real, without structure, change remains a total fantasy.
Because you don't have that structure, you don't map out a small, doable first step, change feels so huge and overwhelming that you simply never start. And hey, if you do try, you probably lack the patience and discipline. You want results in a week, but real change takes months. You hit one tiny setback, you lose your resilience, and you quit. You absolutely have to break it down into daily, disciplined, bite-sized actions.
Which leaves us with the 60th and final truth from our source material. I really want you to ask yourself, 1 year from now, will you be in the exact same spot? The same year, the same you, the same regrets. Unless you drop the excuses, completely reconstruct your environment, and actually start today, the answer is yes. The choice, as always, is entirely yours.